Pleasant evening to everyone who've joined in for today's guest lecture. On behalf of the Department of Civil Engineering, SRM Balliamma Engineering College, I cordially welcome our beloved head of the department, Dr. D. Ilangovan sir, our honorable speaker, all faculty members and students, all the research scholars to our guest lecture on railway track construction practices organized in association the with the Institute of Engineers, VEC Students Chapter, Indian Society for Technical Education, Faculties and Students Chapter. With great sense of honor, I would like to introduce the speaker, Dr. R. Udayakumar. Dr. R. Udayakumar has pursued his master's and doctorate in transportation planning from the College of Engineering, Gindi, Chennai, Anna University, Chennai. He has started his career as a teaching research associate at Anna University and is now working as a general manager, Railway Unit, CDM Smith Incorporated, Chennai. Dr. D. Udayakumar is a transportation planner and railway engineer who possesses almost 18 years of professional experience and having immense sound knowledge in feasibility study, operational management plan, peri-urban development studies, comprehensive mobility plans, and lots more. Dr. Uday Kumar has been awarded with CDM Smith Endor Team Appreciation Award, CDM Smith Service Award, and many more recognitions and awards for his achievements and contributions. Sir has also been recognized by Mrs. Susan Matthew, IAS Chairman Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority, for his work on ridership forecast for Jaipur Metro. Sir, we are truly honored to have you amongst us, sir. Thank you for accepting our invite. I now request Dr. Udaya Kumar to take up the session.
Good evening, one and all present in this virtual conference meeting. As introduced by Ms. Dharini, I am Dr. Uday Kumar. I am currently working as a general manager in railway unit of an infrastructure consultancy firm called CDM Smith Inc. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, especially Dr. Lima Rose, for having given me this opportunity to share my industrial experience on this railway track construction practice to the budding engineers of this country. Today, let us see this railway track construction practice, the sequence of construction activities, how it is getting performed in the site. And I'm not going to bore you with a theoretical lecture or slides with formulas, equations, and all that. I'm just going to show you photo album in a simple way. We can say I'm going to show you a photo album, and in which the sequence of railway track construction, the photos will be arranged in that order. And when you just go through the presentation, it will be self-explanatory, and I will add few technical points then and there, so that you can get the grasp of technical background behind each and every construction sequence. Hope am I audible to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So shall I proceed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. With this introductory note, let me get into the presentation. So the cross section of a railway track consists of two major parts. One is track foundation, other one is track structure. So if you take this subsoil is a natural ground level, and over which we will be filling with earth called embankment, called subgrade, and over which a blanket will be placed, and ballast will be placed over the blanket. And these components like ballast, blanket, subgrade, and all subsoil and all called as track foundation. And your sleepers, rails, and fastenings are called as track structure. Now let us see one by one. So subsoil is a natural ground level which should be a firm ground. That needs to be that site selection should be in such a way that the site should be firm, and it should have necessary bearing capacity. And based on the longitudinal sectional profile of the design, this embankment will be filled to the required level with the borrowed earth in the nearby vicinity of the construction site. And when we compare this embankment with the highway embankment, one special material, earth material called a blanket will be used in highway embankment. In railway embankment, whereas in highway embankment, the entire embankment will be constructed with earth only. So this special material is also an earth material, which has some technical specifications, which we'll see in the later part of the presentation. And in railway embankment, this blanket is provided for 1 meter thickness and with a side slope of 2:1. Over the main function of this blanket is to transfer the load from the train to the filled subgrade as well as natural subsoil. Now, over and above the blanket, the ballast will be spread for a minimum thickness of 30 centimeter with a side slope of 1.5:1. Now, this ballast profile is, there are several profiles depending upon the location of the track, and one such profile for the straight track is given here. Over the ballast, sleeper will be laid and rail and fastenings will be provided on top of the sleeper. So the formation width, which is called as the top width of the embankment for a single track, as per railway convention, is 6.85 meter. The entire cross-sectional profile is designed and developed by an organization called RDSO, that is Research Designs and Standards Organization. Similar to a Bureau of Indian Standards for other civil engineering projects, we have an organization called RDSO, Research Design and Standard Organization, which is responsible for providing design codes for design as well as guidelines for earthwork execution as well as other components execution. If I am going little fast, please stop me so that I can go little slow, and then wherever required, please stop me and ask questions, and you are free to ask questions. Now, as I told you, let us see these components one by one with respect to with the help of photographs, which is taken personally by me during my site visit as well as supervision at sites. Basically, our projects consist of mainly it is called as railway doubling. That means there will be a single track running from one city to the other, and over a period of time, as the demand increases for passenger as well as freight transport, then the capacity of that single railway line will not be sufficient, and railways will go for additional, that is augmenting the capacity of the railway track. So they will go for constructing another railway line, for which the design and implementation supervision will be given to a consultancy firm, and we are one among the firms who are doing this type of projects for Indian Railways. Basically, to start with, you can see in this photograph there is a railway line going running here, and in order not to disturb this running of main line, we will be providing a fence, and all our construction activities will be done on the other side. And usually the second track, that is double track, will be provided almost parallel to the single track, that is existing railway track, in order to avoid a higher cost of the project. Now, in this natural ground, the earth will be dumped initially and it will be spreaded and rolled. So you might have seen in highway construction, if at all not in railways, you might have seen in highway construction this construction sequence when you travel in a long route by the side of if there are some widening activities is going on. Hope everybody would have come across these activities and just might have had a glimpse of it. Now I am going to say the technical details of it. Now, in this embankment, each layer will be like the earth will be dumped, and each layer will be graded and then spread out for a thickness of 25 to 30 centimeter, and it is called as loose thickness. When that layer earth is compacted and it is consolidated by sprinkling water, then it will be coming to a thickness of 20 to 25 centimeter. So that is the convention that is being used for construction of embankment. So embankment construction will not be in for a full thickness. It will be constructed in layers of a minimum of 25 centimeter thickness. Hope you are clear. Now we have seen subsoil and subgrade. So subgrade is the finished, the top layer of the subgrade is like this, and you can see now clearly running line is that is main line is going here, and we have provided a fence here, and we are going to construct the second line, that is doubling of a railway track in this location only. So this is the top of the subgrade, and as I told already, in railways we will provide a special type of material called blanket. So blanket is also nothing but an earth material only, and it has to pass a special kind of specifications like a percentage of plastic fines and non-plastic fines, coefficient of curvature, coefficient of uniformity coefficient, all those things. There are certain criteria, which I have a table that I will show it at the end of the presentation. If that material is, if a material passes these conditions, this criteria, then that material will be chosen for providing a blanket. Suppose if that material is not available in the vicinity of the construction site, then the same will be produced artificially using a pug mill. So this blanket material is important as far as railway embankment is concerned. Now in the cross section we have seen subsoil, subgrade, blanket, and over the blanket we have seen ballast. Now before ballast is spread on the embankment over the top of the blanket, it has to be stacked and then it has to be measured for making pavement. So usually the ballast will be stacked in the shape of a trapezoidal shape, and with the help of a tape it will be measured, and several formulas are there to calculate the volume of the trapezoidal shape, and using such formulas the volume of the material will be calculated, and payment will be made for procuring this material. This is a stone ballast. Now once the measurement is completed, then this ballast will be trailed out and then placed on the embankment. It will be spread on the embankment and rolled for a initial for a thickness of 30 centimeter initially. Next comes the sleeper, which I have already shown in the cross section. So over the ballast, the sleeper will be laid, and the sleeper will be initially stacked at the side of the track, that is construction site, in layers perpendicular to each other, and each layer will have about 8 sleepers. The purpose of keeping in 8 numbers is that the conventional crane that is lifting the sleeper will have capacity to lift 8 sleepers at a time. So for that purpose, these sleepers are stacked in 8 numbers in each layer. Once the sleepers are lifted, and then you can see here, this is a gantry crane which is used for placing the sleepers on the ballast, over the ballast. Now the sleeper spacing is about 60 centimeter center to center, and this machine helps to place a sleeper in a rapid way. Otherwise, if you go for manual placing, it will take long time. Once the sleepers are placed, then you might have seen, or in order to have a cushion effect to the rail, material called GRP, that is grooved rubber pad, will be placed between these 2 parts. This is called MCI, which is called as malleable cast iron. This malleable cast iron insert will be monolithically constructed while casting the sleeper in the factory, and between these 2 inserts the grooved rubber pad will be placed, and over the grooved rubber pad only the rail will be placed from here to here. Now after this laying of sleepers and adjusting the sleepers for its center to center distance of 60 centimeter, Now this machine is called as rail threading machine, which is used to pull the track and then keep the track on the sleeper. And nowadays it is done manually also, but when the machine is used, the precision will be accurate, and we can do work fast, rapid manner. Now, after placing the rail over the sleeper, between the MCI inserts, there are two fastenings that are used to hold the rail with the sleeper. One is called as elastic clip. It is otherwise called as ERC or Pandoral clip. Other one is called as a metal liner. And at some places metal liner will be used, and some other places where the track circuiting is done, there a special type of liner called a GFN liner will be used. GFN stands for gloss filled nylon liner, that is GFN liner, that will be used in the track circuiting area. Now let us see how this is used to fit the railway track to the sleeper. See, this railway track is an I section where you have a lower flange and the rail head, and initially the metal liner will be placed loosely on the lower flange, on top of the lower flange of the rail, and this is the ERC clip, that is Pandoral clip, elastic clip you can say, and one end of this ERC clip will be driven into the MCI insert, and as it is hammered from the side, it will go inside one end, and parallelly this arm of this ERC clip will apply pressure to the metal liner, and in turn this metal liner will apply pressure to the lower flange of the rail to keep to hold the rail in its position. Now let us see how the rails are joined. The standard rail length is 13 meters only, and if you have to go from Chennai to Trichy, it is around 450 kilometers. So each 13-meter rail has to be connected, because the factory produced output, the rail length is only 13 meters. So to connect two rails, conventionally, this is not a modern practice, conventionally fish plates and fish bowls are used. So fish plate is nothing but a rail section again, which will fit into the web portion of the rail, and you can see here this is fitted into the web portion of the rail, wherein the two rails, you can see the rail joint also, there is a gap also, and fish bowls and nuts will be put to connect these two rails. But this is an outdated technology, because this is the weakest section of the railway track, and when the train runs, these bolts and nuts will get loosened, and maintenance problem will arise. So nowadays railways have gone for rail welding. So in rail welding, they will connect the two rails by means of welding technology, that we will see in the next slide. So when we talk about rail welding, basically there are several types of rail welding is there, but basically these two types of rail welding is predominantly used. One is flash butt welding, other one is aluminothermic welding. So as the name indicates, it is a butt welding. Butt welding is nothing but you have to bring these two ends of the rail together, and you have to butt it with a pressure of 35 to 37 tons. When it is butted at this pressure, now this is a flash butt welding machine, and when it is butted like this, then this will lower, and then it will apply heat to extent of 1000 to 1500 degrees centigrade. Thereby the end of these two rails will get melted, and when it is cooled, then these two rails will be joined with the help of a flash butt welded connection. Here the main advantage is the material that is used for welding is the original rail material that is being there available in the other part of the railway track. Whereas this is predominantly used, and this is the strongest type of welding that is predominantly used in the railway construction practice. But the deficiency is it requires a huge machinery and costly machinery also, and the availability of machinery is very less, and only railway is providing that type of machinery. Whereas for an emergency purpose, if the machine is not available, railway is adopting another type of welding called aluminothermic welding, in which a foreign material that is called we call it as a chemical mixture. In railway colloquial terms, we call it as a potion. So that railway, I am getting some noise. I'm getting some noise. Can you mute somebody?
Yes,
I'm muted, sir. Muted, sir.
So, in this, we will be using a foreign material. It's a chemical mixture consisting of aluminum and iron oxide. So, initially, say we have seen in the fish plate connection, we have seen a gap between these two rails, and the same gap will be made available, and at that gap, a refractory mold will be placed like this, and over which in this crucible the mixture of aluminum and iron oxide will be put together, and then a chemical reaction will take place. When the aluminum and iron oxide reacts together, it will form aluminum oxide and molten iron, and with a large amount of heat to the extent of 2500 degrees centigrade. So when to in that temperature, the iron will become molten iron, like it will become a liquid, and when it becomes liquid, then it will be allowed to fill into this refractory mold, so that it will go and fill in the gap between these two rails. So that is how this aluminothermic welding is carried out, and naturally, when we compare these two type of weld, this will provide flash bed welding will provide strong weld, whereas the aluminothermic welding will provide weak weld. But for emergency purpose, we go for AT welding when the machineries is not available. Hope it is clear. Now let us go to the interesting part. This is called ballast packing machine. Now initially we have put 30 centimeter thickness ballast, and then we have over which we have laid the sleepers. But that may not be sufficient, because the cushion effect requires at some locations natural ground may not be strong, so the cushion effect needs to be increased. One second thing is we have to see, finally we have to check for the design criteria, like the level of the rail, the level of the sleeper, level of the ballast, level of the embankment, and all that. So in order to check the design profile as well as the ensure the gradient of the railway track, this particular machine is used to call ballast packing machine, and the main component that is fitted to this ballast packing machine is called ballast packing equipment, which is shown here in this photograph. Now I am going to show a video how this ballast packing is getting done in the railway track in practice, and it will be very interesting to watch. Kindly watch this video patiently for a minute. It will not go beyond 1 or 2 minutes. See, one arm of this machine will lift the rail, and these arms will pack the ballast below the sleeper, so that the level of the sleeper, level of the rail is maintained as per the design. this person is carrying a meter called gauge meter, and as and when this mission goes, he will place this in the track and then check for the gauge. So the gauge width of a broad gauge in Indian Railway is 1.676 meter. You can see here he is taking the gauge. So hope you might have enjoyed this video. Now once this ballast packing machine runs on the track, then our civil engineering portion of the railway track construction is complete, and we by operating this ballast packing machine, we will attain the exact design features. Based on the design, we will attain the required level of the rail and required gradient and required all those standard specifications will be, that is design specifications of the particular track will be achieved. So this is the completed track. Now there is another interesting feature. We have seen this ballasted track, ballast packing and all that, but in modern days, though this is costlier, in modern railway construction, at some locations railways are adopting ballastless track, especially inside the tunnels and elevated tracks, especially in metro rails. This ballastless track is being used because ballasted track gives a lot of maintenance issues. So ballastless track is being used at some important locations because it is costlier when compared to ballasted track. Now ballastless track is nothing but it's again a thick concrete medium which will be constructed monolithically with the sleeper, and when that concrete bed is placed below this track, then that concrete bed itself will act as a shock absorber. That is, it will function as a ballast, and it will take the load from the train and distribute to the natural ground below. So that is the purpose of a ballastless track, and it is maintenance free, and we need not have to replace the ballast or screen the ballast once in a while and all that. Now let us get into some of the other components of that we will come across in railway track. So one such component is a curve, and you might have seen, you might have read about the curve design and all in highway engineering also. So curve is mainly used to change the direction of the movement of train. So we have several design parameters for curves, such as length of the curve, degree of curve, radius of curve, transition length of the curve, super elevation of the curve. All those things will be designed priorly, and then it will be implemented at the site. And for each curve, a board will be kept by the side of the track, and all these technical specifications will be written on that. Then level crossing is one another component of railway track, where this road meets the rail. That portion is called as a level crossing, and basically there are two major type of level crossing. One is unmanned level crossing, other one is manned level crossing. In the manned level crossing, there will be a gatekeeper, and he will get instructions from the station masters from the nearby station. And when the train is coming, this all it's a usual procedure which everybody knows. So he used to close the gate, and then when the train goes off, then he will open. Whereas in the unmanned level crossing, it is a risky proposition where the road user is responsible for managing his safety, and the railway is not responsible for accidents occurred here, because the road user has to wait, and then several precautionary instruction board and all will be kept. But the responsibility of safety lies with the road user. So road user has to stop and see whether there is no train, and then only he has to cross the track. But in spite of that, there are a lot of accidents that is happening, especially at unmanned level crossings in the rural areas. So now railway has come out with a broad scheme, a mega scheme, to replace all the unmanned level crossings, especially at southern part of India, to replace it with either with grade separator or a manned level crossing, depending upon the depending upon a factor called train vehicle unit. So train vehicle unit is nothing but it is abbreviated as TVU. It is nothing but the number of vehicles moving during the peak hour into the number of trains passing through the track will give train vehicle units. Now this points and crossing is one another important component of a railway track, which is used to change over from one track to the another track. So there are two we can say two terms. One is facing points and crossing and trailing points and crossing. Here you can see from here only the diversion of one track to the other starts. So this point, this portion is called as point. In other words, it is called as a switch. Now this switch is part of a points and crossing, and it is called as a point. And this area is called as a crossing, where you can see a diamond shape like this. It's called a crossing. When you go on the track, if you want to go straight, then the position of the switch will be like this. Then the wheel flange will take up this rail and it will go straight. When the train has to go in this curve, then this switch will be released and it will be allowed to lock it inside this rail, and the train will take up this curved track. So when we go in this direction, when we first encounter this point and then the crossing, then it is called as a facing points and crossing. And when we move in the reverse direction, that is when we come across crossing first, this is called the crossing. When we come across crossing first and then the point, then it is called as a trailing points and crossings. And switch expansion joint is yet another important component in the railway track. And since we have already discussed about rail welding, nowadays the 13-meter rails are getting welded for a length of more than kilometers. And there are two concepts in that. One is long welded rail, other one is continuous welded rail. So continuous welded rail will go for a maximum length of 1 to 1.5 kilometers, whereas the long welded rail will go for more than 10 to 15 kilometers. But we all know that the rail is a metal, and it is when it is subjected to high temperature, it will expand. So there should be a provision for the rail to expand and contract, for which this component called switch expansion joint is provided at specific locations in the railway track. Here you can see a gap between these two rails, and the rails will be split up here into in longitudinally as well as this side also, cross section also. Here you can see a gap, and here also you can see a gap. So when the temperature increases, this rail will expand and then occupy this gap. Similarly, this rail will expand and occupy this gap, and when it is cooled, it will contract. So this component is nothing but it's a provision provided to expand and contract, to allow the expansion and contraction of the rail. And the specification of this SEJ will be written similar to a curve board. It will be written on a board by the side of the track. And similar to highways, we have bridges as another major component in railway track. And the main purpose of a bridge is to provide for cross drainage works. Cross drainage means water has to move from one side of the track to the other side of the track. And basically there are two types of bridges. One is a minor bridge, the other one is a major bridge. And the width of this is called as a linear waterway. And when the linear waterway is less than 12 meters, it is called minor bridge. And when the linear waterway exceeds 12 meters, then that is called as a major bridge. Now in all bridges, you will see these markings. This black color marking is called as high flood level. And based on the flood data for the past 50 years, this will be measured and then marked here. And this is called high flood level. and this red line is called as a danger level. And when the water level rises to this danger level, then the train operations will be stopped and the train will not be allowed in that track. And this bridge approach is one another important component in the railway track, wherein you can see, apart from your regular rail, there will be a guard rail. So this guard rail helps to prevent the derailing of rails, especially at the bridges. Now here you can see the bridge number and an arrow which shows the direction of the stream. So if the arrow is this side, then the upstream side of the stream is this side and the downstream side is that side. So water flows from right to left. And near to the bridge and the river, you will see a name board which will have a name and then the number of the bridge and its span and the other specifications also. And station building is yet another important component of railway operations, wherein the passenger tickets are booked and other passenger facilities are provided in the railway stations. And mainly it is used for collecting the revenue for the railway operations. In the platform, you might have come across the platform amenities like station boards, then a fence, then benches, drinking water facilities, then a shade, cover shade, and all those amenities will be provided on the railway platform. Now we have almost completed the civil engineering components as well as the main civil engineering track structure. Now let us discuss something about electrical and SNT. So electrification means we are going to provide overhead electrical, that is OHE stands for overhead electrification, and we will provide an electric line over the track so that the train will get power supply from that electrical line and then it will get operated. So initially, for constructing this overhead electrification, a trench will be digged like this and a platform will be constructed with a cylindrical barrel hole, wherein this is a high mast used for this overhead electrification. It will be inserted. Now you can see it very clearly here. After inserting that that is mast into that cylindrical hole, it will be grouted and the vertical position will be ensured. Once that is ensured, this is called as a bracket. So this rail brackets will be fitted to this mast and the wires will be run across this series of brackets on top of the track, in the center of the track. Now if you take these two wires, the top wire is called as catenary wire and the bottom wire is called as a contact wire. Now why this is called a contact wire is, it will come into contact with the train and it will carry a high voltage of around 25 kilowatt. So if you happen to see in the electrical engine of the train, you might have seen a triangular shaped component called pantograph, and that component will be while the train is starting, it will be raised and then it will come into contact with this wire and it will run by rubbing this wire throughout its journey. So when it is rubbing, then the power, that is the 25 kilowatt power, will be supplied to that train electric engine and thereby the electric the train operations is being carried out. Coming to SNT, SNT stands for signal and telecommunication, and obviously this is for safety point of view, we need to stop the train at the required locations, for which signals and telecommunication is really important. So such type of arrangements you might have seen in the station premises also. This is one such SNT location box in which the SNT equipments will be placed inside. Here you can see this SNT box, you can see, and then this signal post is similar to our road signal post only. Conventionally, three-phase signal will be used: red, amber, and green. And red is for stopping, and amber is for caution, and green is for proceed. And this is an important component in railway engineering. This is called as a panel that will be provided in the station master's room. So this panel will consist of a yard plan. Yard plan means the track features that is available in the station premises that will be depicted in this panel, SNT control panel, through which with the help of this panel only, the station master will receive the train, and then he will decide in which track is free and in which track it has to be allowed. Accordingly, he will allow the train in the particular track, and he has to ensure that there is no train running or stopping in the adjacent block till the next station, station master's control. And when the track is free, then he will allow the train to leave the station. Now this is the complete finished track in which your civil engineering component is finished, and OHE, that is electrical component is finished, and SNT component is finished, and it is ready to open for public. And before this process, an officer called Commissioner of Railway Safety is usually called as CRS. He will come and inspect the track for its quality and the standards that has been followed as per RDSO, which you have seen in the first slide. So once the quality and the standards have been followed, he will run a speed trial with the help of a special engine with cabins. He will run the train at a faster speed of say 120 to 130 kilometers per hour, and then see the fitness of the track. And several equipments will be there inside this inside that oscillation, that is inside that train, which will measure the undulations or some flaws in the construction. And once that speed trial is completed, then he will issue notes, and once the notes are attended and the minor flaws are rectified, then this track will be allowed or open to public for commissioning. Once all those safety processes are over, then the train will be allowed in the track for using it for the public purpose, and that type of track is called as commissioned track. Now we have seen so many photographs, and hope you might have understood the sequence of construction of a railway track and how many components are involved, and all that. Now let us quickly get into a little theoretical aspect, because without which engineering will not be complete. So far for every slide I have seen quality, and we should know as an engineer how this quality control process is being maintained for this railway construction. So here, this you might have seen in your highway lab also. This is simply drying of borrow earth, which we have used in the embankment and blanket. So this will be dried, and then it will be sealed for grading and the size and all that. Then weighing machine is there. You might have seen this in your lab. Then this all Atterberg limits, which we will be using for soil testing, like liquid limit, plastic limit, and then for identifying specific gravity, you will be using pycnometer. All those things you will be very familiar. I need not to explain. Then this is for sieves for grading, and it's an impact testing machine to find out the aggregate impact value. Now this one interesting test that alone I'll explain, because it is very important to check the compactness of the embankment, which we are doing for every 25 centimeter thickness. So once the 25 centimeter thickness embankment, that is one layer of embankment, is compacted, then this is a cylindrical mold, or we call it as a core cutter, and this core cutter will be driven inside on the top surface of the layer, and it will be taken out, and with the soil specimen it will be weighed, and about 10 gram of the soil specimen will be weighed and then put it in this moisture measurement gauge, wherein inside calcium carbide will be available, and with the help of that reaction, there will be a meter which will provide the moisture content of the soil that is being available at the site. Now, let us see from the beginning how this quality control process is being carried out. Now, initially over the subgrade or subsoil, we are putting embankment, for which we are using the borrow material or earth material, and the main purpose of this test is to find out the suitability of the material, and if it is not suitable, then it will be discarded, and another quarry will be identified, and then material will be procured. So this borrow material test should be done for every 5,000 cubic meter. One test, minimum one test for every 5,000 cubic meter. And in the quarry, if there is a change in strata, and if there is a markable change in the type of soil, then another test will be carried out. Otherwise, for every 5,000 cubic meter, one test will be conducted. And the specifications and the testing procedure will be available in IS 2720 relevant part. Similarly, for blanket material, this is also so for suitability of the material, this blanket material will be tested. And as I told you, this is important material as far as railway embankment is concerned. And this material test will be done for every 500 cubic meter volume, one test, minimum one test for every 500 cubic meter. And as I already told, see, the material has to pass for blanket only if it has a non-plastic fines less than 12%, then plastic fines should be less than 5%. Then uniformity coefficient should be greater than 4, and the coefficient of curvature should be between 1 and 3. So when a material passes all these specifications, then only it will be allowed, or it will be selected for a blanket material, and it will be allowed to put it in the site. Coming to this field dry density, as I already explained about the core cutter procedure, we call it as the FDD, field dry density. For each layer of 25 centimeter, on the top layer, wherein we are going to provide, over which we are going to provide only ballast, in the top layer, we will be conducting this field dry density test for every 200 square meter area, whereas in the lower layers, in the lower 25 centimeter layers, we will be doing this FDD test for every 500 square meter area. So the acceptance criteria for this test is, before doing this test, we will be doing a maximum dry density test at the lab, and we will be arriving at a maximum dry density value. And your field dry density that we are doing at the field using this core cutter method should have a value not less than 98% of the maximum dry density value that we have already found out in the lab. Similarly, the blanket layer also will be tested for this field dry density, and here for all the layers of blanket, for every 200 square meter area, one test will be conducted. And similar, the acceptance criteria is similar to your subgrade only, and FDD should not be less than 98% of your maximum dry density. Coming to ballast, ballast is a stone aggregate, and you might have done this aggregate test in concrete lab also, and similar test will be conducted for this ballast. Only thing is, ballast is a big size stone, whereas your concrete lab, you will be testing this 3 by 4th inch of 3 by 4th inch size stone materials, whereas this will be around 40 mm size. Now here the main tests that will be conducted are size and gradation, abrasion value, impact value, and water absorption test. So with respect to size and gradation, your ballast material should only 5% of the material should pass through 65 mm. That is 5% should be retained on the 65 mm sieve, and 40 to 60% of the material should be retained on 40 mm sieve, and around 98% of the material should be retained on 20 mm sieve. That means only 2% of the material can be less than 20 mm. So that is how the gradation and the size of the ballast is ensured. Then abrasion value should not be greater than 30%. Impact value should not be more than 20%, and water absorption should not be more than 1%. If these materials, if this if this criteria is followed, or if the material satisfies these criteria, then that material will pass for ballast. Otherwise, that entire stack will be rejected, and the new material will be procured. And for your information, railways are very strict about the quality control, and the contractors will incur loss if they procure inferior quality materials. And a few words about our company. It's a multinational company headquartered at Boston, USA, and we have several verticals like water, transportation, environment, energy, and facilities. And our head office of Indian operation is administered from Bangalore, and whereas the rail unit alone is getting operated from Chennai office. And we have done so many projects with respect to design as well as project management consultancy across India, starting from Rajasthan to Delhi high-speed corridor, and Varanasi, Bihar, Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. We have done several projects, and we are doing also. And our company's motto is driven by initiative, excellence, integrity, shared commitment, and teamwork. While I was introduced, this was already discussed with you. So I have done schooling from Chennai, and then undergraduation, post-graduation. Undergraduation from Annamalai University, and post-graduation and doctorate from Anna University. And I have bagged several awards as explained by Ms. Tarini, if I am right. I think with this, I conclude my presentation, and I thank one and all for your patient attention. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer you.
Good evening, sir. This is Satyanarayan Sharma.
Yeah.
I'm working in SRM Valliyamma College.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a small clarification.
Yeah, please.
In what way the ordinary conventional whatever construction procedure has been differ from the metro construction, train construction? And one more thing is you are talking about concrete sleepers, right? And then ballast. So you said no need of maintenance, frequent maintenance.
Yeah.
So my question is how durability criteria has been, how it has been addressed? How can we can achieve more durable?
Yeah. So the first question is metro rail. Usually, metro rail is put inside the city where the space constraints are there. So space constraint means we cannot put a railway track inside the city. So the only option is either you have to go underground, or you have to go on top of the ground, or overhead. So underground means we have to provide tunneling. So if you see Chennai Metro Rail, we have both the sections like underground tunneling as well as overhead line also. In the underground tunneling, this soil, that is, there will be a tunnel boring machine, TBM we used to say. So TBM machine will be used to dug the tunnel shape, that is circular tunnel, and in that after the tunnel is bored, then their ballastless track will be constructed. That is, a base concrete will be laid, and over which ballastless track will be constructed. Then track will be there, and the train will be operated in that track. So that is one part. So there won't be any embankment in the metro rail construction, and there will not be any ballast also. Mostly ballastless track is being used in the metro rail, and all other components are same. Only thing is the conventional rail gauge is broad gauge, which is 1.676 meter, whereas metro rail is using standard gauge, which is around 1.4 meters only. And fastenings, this elastic clip, then metal liner and all is the conventional one, whereas now several modern fastenings like Oslo fittings, then German make fittings are there, which is providing more life and then maintenance free. So that is being used in metro rail. Okay, so this is the basic difference. This is with respect to underground tunneling, whereas in overhead metro rail process construction process, as usual, you have to put concrete pillars and deck slab, and over the deck slab, there also, if required, we can go for ballasted track also. For example, if you go in beach to Valacheri in MRTS, beyond your Mylapore station, you can see ballasted track up to Valacheri, and before Mylapore station to beach, you can see ballastless track. So in the overhead construction, both ballasted track as well as ballastless tracks are being used, depending upon the requirement and standard and design process. So this is the major difference between your conventional construction procedure and the metro rail construction. And coming to your next question, second question, this ballasted track requires maintenance because when the train moves on the track, then your ballast is going to act as a shock absorber, similar to a suspension in your two-wheeler or car. So when it is absorbing shocks frequently, then it is subjected to crushing. So when it is subjected to crushing, then you cannot meet the quality criteria that I have presented in the table. And when it is crushed, then its size will be reduced and strength also will be reduced. So now frequently it will be replaced with a new ballast. So once in every 5 years, the ballast has to be replaced. Whereas when you go into ballastless track, usually the age of a concrete construction is around 100 to 120 years. So the huge mass concrete construction, if the ballastless track is provided with that type of concrete, then at least for a long run, it will be maintenance free, and there will be a seamless, you can provide seamless train operations with the help of ballastless track. But at the same time, ballast track initial expense is high, whereas the ballasted track, where we are providing ballast, the initial expense is low. But when we take metro rail, you cannot get into the tunnel and then go for maintenance once in a while. So there you have to fit the ballast and then you have to construct the ballast and forget it. There, especially in underground tunnel, we are going for ballastless track only. So the tunnel construction, tunnel lining also will have a lifespan or durability of around 100 to 120 years. Similarly, your ballastless track also will have the same lifespan. Hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question from your side,
Yeah,
sir.
please.
Hello.
Please tell me.
Sir, if you are considering the bullet train, that is high speed train,
Yeah.
the rail length will be, what is the minimum length and maximum length, sir, the rail length?
Rail length.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Normally, the one rail length will be, it is vary from 12 to 15 meters.
Yeah, everywhere the standard rail length is 13 meters only.
Okay, sir.
Okay, it will be welded. It will be welded to form a long welded rail, and in high speed rail, the what you call as the gauge or the profile, the material of the rail will vary, and conventionally we use 60 kg rail, and in railway siding we use 56 kg rail, whereas in high speed rail the specification of the rail will vary.
Yes, sir. I want to know that what is the length? The length will be same. Can you manage with the 13 kilometers for high speed train?
No. See, when you weld the rail, it is nothing but a rail of long length. Okay. So it will run into several kilometers. And as I already told, we have a concept called continuous welded rail and long welded rail. Okay. So continuous welded rail will be having a rail length of 1.5 kilometer, and long welded rail will have maximum of 10 to 14 kilometers, because in rural area, each station, the distance between one station and other station is minimum 10 kilometers, and roughly 10 to 12 kilometers this rail will be welded, and in the station premises only, as I explained already, we will provide a component called SEJ, that is called switch expansion joint, and using which the rails will expand and contract.
For this type of high-speed trains, whether the ballast will be repaired or even the concrete sleep, that's without the ballast. So that is will be preferred, sir.
No, for high speed and all, even for metro rail, we are using ballastless track only.
Yeah, ballast.
So for high speed rail, this ballast and all will not work out. We have to go for ballastless track only.
Whether it is possible to implement in India, sir?
Yeah, they are trying from Mumbai to Delhi high speed rail, and I think some work is going on. It's in the design completion stage, I think. We are not into that high speed rail business now, so we are doing only conventional railway track execution.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, I would like to thank our guest, Dr. Uday Kumar, for enlightening us with his knowledge. The lecture Sir has definitely given the students deep insights into the topic and have also revealed some interesting facts in the construction practices of railway lanes. The points where Sir told us about the steps involved in the construction and testing was really informative. I'm pretty sure the precious knowledge Sir gave us will definitely help the students in their studies in future. Once again, I would like to thank Sir for taking out time from his busy schedule to give this lecture. Thank you so much, Sir.
Thank you. Thanks for your wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I would also like to thank our beloved principal, sir, vice principal, sir, and HOD, sir, for giving us permission to organize this guest lecture. I would extend my thanks to all the faculty members who helped us in making this event successful. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the students for paying their attention and learning. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye. See you.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.